to Welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and I want to talk to you about my goals for 2024. So, in 2024, I want to focus on really one main goal. I'm still going to make sure that I read horror books, a lot of different types of horror throughout the year in 2024, but it's not going to be my main goal. But I have been working on that one this year. Like, I just filmed my review of Rosemary's Baby. I recently purchased Psycho on Kindle as well as Rosemary's Baby. So, I purchased Rosemary's Baby on Kindle. I just finished it, and then right after I saw that they had Psycho for a really good deal. It was only like $2.51. I was like, let me go and buy this now. So I bought that one. And I'm going to read that one at some point. I might read that in December because I have another book on Kindle that I want to read for November that's not horror. And I also want to get books like My Best Friend's Exorcism, The Exorcist. One is the very first Exorcist book, and there's a lot of Grady Hendrix I want to get, and Brom has a couple books that are kind of in the horror category that I want to get. And I'm trying to think of what were some of the other ones I talked about. I would have to look at my list, which I think I threw that list away anyway, because I didn't think I needed it anymore. I'll have to double check, see if I kept that list. But my goal for 2024, this time around, the one goal I'm going to focus on, the only goal I'm going to have, is focusing more on my 500 plus page books. I know I talked about that for a goal for this year in 2023. But I didn't prioritize it. It was just one of a few goals that I wanted to focus on. And I did accomplish some tomes. Like, I finished The Physician. I read Anna Karenina. I also, and a big one is The Way of Kings and Ruin of Kings. I was very pleased I finished both those books. Now, the only reason I was able to finish those books, of course, was because I had started them a couple years ago, and then I finally was like picking them up again to finish them. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. For me, even if I put a book down, if it's a tome length book, that doesn't necessarily mean I'm not interested anymore. It just means again, I've said this before, I have commitment issues when it comes to bigger books, because I'm thinking about all the books that won't take me as long to read, that I can read those first. And sometimes if it's not fantasy, it can be even more of a problem, more of a challenge for me, because non-fantasy books can be slow at times, and then I lose patience. Like, even The Count of Monte Cristo, it has its slow moments. But what helped me with, at least with The Count of Monte Cristo, is I listened to it on audio. I eventually got the audiobook to listen, so I could listen to it. I did restart it a while back, because I wanted to read it again at some point. I did continue. Like I said, I did pick it up, but I haven't continued it because I've been sidetracked by other books, all my other bigger books. That's another reason I picked up a lot this year. Like, I got Mason and Dixon by Thomas Pynchon. He's the same guy who wrote Gravity's Rainbow. And I was looking at the writing because I was again reminded by one of the salespeople at the roast office that they heard that Thomas Pynchon is kind of a hard to read. But so I was looking at it, it's actually not too terrible. I mean, I don't think I could bring it with me if I go to visit my grandma or I go to my sister's, because I need the quiet and not as many distractions. I probably couldn't bring it there. and I need a comfortable chair but not so comfortable that I'm going to fall asleep. And so and right now I'm in this moment of this feeling of which of my big books that I want to pick up and start reading now. But it's like, which ones do I start now, or should I wait after the holidays, or at least after Thanksgiving? Because I know Christmas we're not going anywhere. I think this year we're going to stay here. But yeah, we're going to stay here for Christmas, and then right after Christmas, after Christmas, that's when we'll visit my sister. But I don't know, it's because I always feel guilty if I have books where I've started them and I'm in the middle of reading them and don't pick them up for a while because there's other books, or I can't bring this with me when we travel, and because it'll be hard to read because there'll be too many distractions and I can't get comfortable. And then it ends up sitting there. I mean, like I said, that particular book doesn't look that hard to read, so I don't know, maybe I could. And I might talk myself into it anyway, because, thinking, oh, it's not that hard. I also, I started thinking about Lord of the Rings again, and maybe reading that for Christmas. I'm looking down here because I have them all in a pile over here. It's also Dombey and Son I was thinking about again, and The Recognitions by William Gaddis. That's another one I've been thinking. Now that is definitely, the writing style is very different than what I'm used to. So that writing style is a little bit more of a challenge for me, because he's one of those, William Gaddis is one of those others who doesn't use quotations. I mean to look up people's, someone explaining why there are some authors like William Gaddis who do not use quotations. But to me that's really annoying. It's because I don't know what is talking, although he does put a little symbol that shows that someone's talking. And then also just sometimes there's a bit of a stream of consciousness feel that I really struggle with, because it's just one big blurb of someone's thoughts in the moment, and it can be very confusing. And there's no, feels like it reads like someone is really talking really fast, a mile a minute, and you're like, okay, breathe. Get to give me a chance to catch up. Which I know that's how people think. There are times when I'm anxious about things that I start having continuous thoughts. Especially at night when I'm trying to fall asleep, then that's when it happens, because I have nothing else to distract me except for trying to go to sleep. And that's when all my thoughts spiral. Only when I'm really worried about something. I'm not, So I get that, but when I read, I don't want that. I don't want to read like I think. And there's also one of the some of the the earlier this year, close before our trip was gonna happen, I got the English Civil War, which is about the revolution, the American Revolution, from the British perspective and what they were dealing with on their side of it. I think that's what that focuses on, and I wanted to read that right before we went on our trip. I mean, I knew I probably wouldn't get to it. So now that we had to cancel our trip and we might not be going until next year, I kind of want to start that one, at least dabble into it a little bit. Then there's also Lonesome Dove I've been wanting to read, and I made a comment on Mike's book reviews video, and where I was sharing what books I recently purchased, and that was one of them, and he was saying, oh, I hope you like it, and I kind of jokingly said, oh, is that an endorsement that I should read that one now? Because I was thinking about reading that one now and going ahead and picking that one up. My other hesitancy is other times it's also when we go visit family, I'm like, do I bring a fantasy book with me, or will I be in the mood for a non-fantasy book? That I always run into that, because fantasy is my number one genre. But then at the same time, I don't want to bring a lot of books. I want to, kind of lessen the amount of books I bring with me. but that's a big struggle. And then of course I have people like, Larissa being like, oh, just bring bring whatever you want, as many as you want, so that you can have backup, not like 10, 20 books, but just, if you can't decide, just bring more than one, so you have options. And part of me feels guilty when I do that, because then I know I'm gonna barely tap into the book. I might read like a couple pages, or I might not even pick the book up. And I always feel bad about that, so I try not to bring as many books. There's also Life and Fate by Lev Grossman, which is Russian literature, and it's a World War II book. And it's an epic, and one of my theme for this year is not just big books, but epic books. So also a lot of my series that are big, like The Wheel of Time, a lot of those books are huge books. And I'm into those. And of course, the Stormlight Archives, I want to read one of those. And there's a lot of series such as, what is that series called? By Jenna Lyons, I used to know the name, but the one starting with The Ruin of Kings, that series, that has like, I think 9 books in total, and that's a finished series. So, and I want to get out of that. I've gotten to the habit over the years of like, I get the first book in a series, and then I decide I'm no longer interested in the series, even if I read the first book. So unless I get the second book right away, sometimes I end up deciding all of a sudden, like, I'm not interested in this anymore. I'm lost, because it takes too long to get the next book. And I understand writing a book is hard, especially if it's a fantasy book. Fantasy or sci-fi or horror, any genre book, I imagine, is really hard to get it within a certain period of time, because you're being pressured, and then there's so much you want to do and so much you have to build on. And if you're writing the final book, you gotta finish everything off and find out how you're gonna end it. And just, I understand there's a lot, so I get why it will take a year or more to get a book written, write the next book. But sometimes there are books that I will, even though I liked it, I enjoyed it when I read it, I end up, getting impatient, and it's like, okay, I'm no longer interested in this. And maybe that's because I didn't like it enough to be motivated to get the next one. But yeah, I'm trying to not let that happen all the time. And the good news is with the Mayfair Witches trilogy, I have all 3 books now, so I don't have to worry about with that one. Unfortunately, there are books that aren't tomes that I do want to prioritize, like some of my books about the Philippines, like fiction books, and one nonfiction book about the Philippines. I want to get to those, so those aren't tomes, but I do want to read those this year. Because, as I said, when I mentioned, those books are part of my culture. I am a quarter Filipino, so I feel like I want to know more about the Philippines and read more literature from the Philippines. Like, I feel like I should. And I got quite a few of them last year and earlier this year in 2023, so I need to read those books. But let's see, what other tomes? Lord of the Rings is another one. There's some tomes I want to reread that I started to reread earlier this year, and I want to pick them up and get through them. It's just, with those rereads, again, another thing I feel bad about, because I'm like, oh, I have so many new books I haven't read that I need to get to and read those first. But I have so many that's like, it's almost like I will never get to my rereads. And that's something I want to get, I don't want to be afraid to reread books, especially favorites. I don't want it to be years from now to a point where I don't remember what happened. And then, like, not that there's anything wrong. I mean, that might actually not be a bad thing if you don't remember, and then it feels like you're reading it for the first time. That's kind of nice and kind of a privilege that you can feel that way. But I don't want to always know whatever all these books. The good news is, the thing about, I know that people have problems with adaptations because adaptations are either just okay or they're really bad. But I do think that's one of the good things about adaptations. If they do okay and get it as close to accurate as possible, then it can help you remember things about the book. At least for me, it can, because I remember movies and TV shows better than books. Which, my belief about that is that you can put you can watch a movie or TV show instantly. It's easy to put a Blu-ray or a DVD in, or to find something on a streaming network or on TV, and to, turn it on. You get the visuals, and you get actors, and it's easier to get it into my mind, so I can remember it. With the book, and because I read so much, there's so many words and so many things to remember, and I don't have the visual. I just have to rely on my own imagination. So, and yeah, a movie or a TV show is someone else's idea, someone else's imagination of how the characters are. But it does help me a lot remember aspects of the story. As long as they're accurate. Like, not always. Like I said, a lot of times adaptations can be downright just bad. And and sometimes if it wasn't an adaptation and just what it is, then it could be a decent movie and seen as entertaining. But if it's an adaptation, then people have a hard time getting past. I think there are people that have a hard time getting past the adaptation, the fact that it's an adaptation of one of their favorite books, which is fine. I mean, and I could be totally wrong there. I could be wrong, but I just feel like sometimes people just can't get past that it's an adaptation of their favorite book, so it doesn't matter. And you can't separate it from being an adaptation. And it's seen as a bad movie, even if it wasn't one. Even if you could separate it, it's not necessarily that bad. But that's another topic. So let's get back to tomes. Like some of the ones I want to reread are like Bleak House, Middlemarch, Clash of Kings, and It by Stephen King. And all four of those books I have restarted, but haven't picked them up for a while. And then of course there are some tomes that I've started to read that I haven't read before, that like Dombey and Son, where I put them down, or Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norwell, where I've started them and then put them down, then came back to them, started reading them again, and then put them down again. So that's what I want to focus on in 2024, is getting more of those books read. Like, I was very satisfied this year so far of the bigger books that I've accomplished, so it's nice to be able to say I've read some big books. And I do feel like in 2023 I did kind of focus on that goal, so this year I want to make it the only goal that I have or I shouldn't say this year, I mean in 2024. I want to make it the main goal, is to focus on my tomes and getting all those read and not leaving them on the shelf. So I need to make a list of those, which is hard because I have so many books, and just going through all my books it can be very overwhelming, and I get stressed out. I'm like, did I already put that one in? And I need to do this one, include this one. And then of course I keep buying books, so I keep adding on to that list. But I have been trying to unhaul books. Like, I recently watched Middle of the Book March. I just watched her video this morning before we left, but I always forget her name. Her actual name, not her channel name. Her channel name is Middle of the Book March. But I don't remember her real life name. I just watched her video, and I'm sure she said her name in her introduction. I think she says her name every time, but I can never remember it. Unless I force myself to. She was talking about all the books. She was kind of talking about how her week was going with her reading and everything. And one of the things that she brought up was she was unhauling a bunch of books. And, I made a comment, of course, saying that I feel like I need to do that. Sometimes I feel like I can do that, but other times I'm looking at my shelf and feeling like, oh, but maybe I want to read that in the future. And then a booktuber will bring up that book, even if I do decide, okay, I'm gonna go put this book in the donation pile. And then booktuber brings it up, and then it reminds me of my interest in the book, or thinking, oh, I might still be interested in that book, and I put it back on the shelf. I often run into that, and maybe that just means I need to work on my self-control, or like not give in to temptation and not be like, okay, really figure out what I want in a book and what stories I genuinely want to read, and not just because a booktuber talked about how great the book was. See, I'm not someone who goes by, oh, the book cover is pretty. Which, that's fine if you like that, because nothing is wrong with wanting a nice aesthetic on your bookshelves and liking a beautiful book. That's not a crime, in my opinion. Like, I don't get how people get bent out of shape when you want a pretty cover. That doesn't mean you're not going to read the book or don't see the value of the book. And let them do what they want. If they just want to keep the book because it has a beautiful cover, it gets people to, pretty cover is what draws people in. Not everybody wants an ugly cover. And people, that's the first thing you see with a book. Unless you, again, just like with people, unless you literally cannot see, if you have the disability of blindness, you're gonna pay attention to looks. Whether it's an object or a person. That's the first thing you're gonna see. And that is a big marketing tool, is a pretty cover. So I think people shouldn't get upset and get all like, how dare you, or you're so shallow, and judge people for that. Luckily, no one's ever, because I have never been that way. I've never looked at a book and thought, because I read the back. I can't bring myself to risk my money on a pretty cover. I don't think you should, if someone wants to do that and wants a nice looking bookshelf with beautiful covers on display, then who cares? Why should I care? I just don't do it myself because I feel like I can't take that risk with spending, and I am a little influenced by that, because I do look at the covers of books and think about what this cover looks like, and if it's a cover aesthetic that I like. And I don't do that. I don't keep books because I like the cover. The reason why I might keep books, like I said, my problem is other booktubers talk about the book and talk about how great it is, so I want to keep it and think, oh, I might enjoy it too, because I give into the hype. So I think my problem is I do give into hype, even though I've always believed I didn't. I think I kind of do. Or at least not necessarily the hype with everybody, but more of one person hyping the book up can influence me, especially if it's a booktuber that I like and that I enjoy watching and what they have to say about the book. That's the thing that I do. That's my Achilles heel, so to speak. But so yeah, so I've been meaning to go through my books and try to unhaul some, see if I can unhaul a little bit more. I did recently unhaul Edith Wharton's Ghost Stories, and I'm going to talk about that in my fourth quarter wrap up, which hopefully I'll remember to do that by the end of December. Maybe it'll be part of my January videos, my wrap up for the fourth and final quarter of 2023. Anyway, so that is my main goal. So I guess in a way that unhauling books is kind of a mini, or I mean, it's not a goal for 2024. It's more of a right now goal. I would like to try to do that, go through my books again and see if there's anything, but I might not find anything. So it's not a goal. It's maybe a goal that I don't know if I can fulfill, or at least not fulfill right now. Anyway, so that's will be my main focus in 2024, is reading some of my bigger books. I mean, really more of the 650 page books. Because I've read some 500 page books and gotten them finished within the whole month. That might be the only book I read that month. Or, well, maybe, Although I don't know if I've ever read just one book a month. I mean, I've come close a couple times, but I don't think I've ever did just one book. Okay. One more thing. Let me just real quick show you what I ended up making a purchase today. And then I gotta go, because I got to finish, I did not pay attention, I got to finish, stop, because I gotta go downstairs and play with it and spend time, be with the dog. Okay, so first I picked up, we went to TJ Maxx. I was gonna buy some clothes like I usually do, but then my mom, then I decided, talking to my mom about it, do I really need to buy more shirts, more blouses? But I did buy this, a mindfulness journal. I'm gonna try this, and the good news is I don't have to wait until next year to start it. I can go into it now and write things down. I don't know if I can do that though. But yeah, I thought this might be something to try. And it's only like $5.99, so I only spent like $6 on it. So it's not a terrible price. Or, oh no, this is actually $4.99. So really $5. So it's not bad. And then I also got this 2024 agenda book, January to December. So it's only for 2024. It's not a pretty one, but I wanted to go ahead and get it because I love these things. I'm so weird about that. Which, it's so funny. I go back and forth because sometimes I want the ones that have the lines like your agenda books. And then other times I look at these ones and I like these ones. So I don't really know. I mean, the problem is I don't do a lot. So I don't have a lot to put in here. So that's the only reason why I hesitate to get them. But I do like them. So this is kind of not really pretty. Again, neither one of these are really pretty. I just kind of like, I'm starting to really like this aesthetic more than like the pretty stuff, because it's so hard, because I'm very particular about that, about the, pretty cutesy ones. But anyway, yeah, I want to show you that. This was $5.99, so this was $6. So I didn't spend a lot of money, so it's not a big deal. But I wanted to show you guys that. Anyway, so I gotta go, because I gotta, watching the dog. And I don't want him in my room, because he will get into, he's a puppy, so he will get into stuff, and it'll be hard for me to do the stuff I want to do if I'm trying to make sure he doesn't leave me little presents or get a hold of stuff he's not supposed to chew, like cords and papers that have important stuff, and shoes and socks and all that stuff. That's the joys of a puppy. I wanted him. I want Murphy. I'm happy that we got him. But very stressful. With all the, trying to watch him, make sure he doesn't get into stuff he shouldn't. The bitey stage, the chewy stage, all that. Anyway, so that is kind of my goals for 2024. I hope you all are doing great right now. If you have your goals, do you have goals for 2024? Do you set goals? I would love to know what those are if you do. And I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up, click subscribe if you haven't already, click the bell notification button below if you want to be notified about my latest videos. And I hope your reading is going well in these last 2 months of 2023, and I will talk to you all later. All right, bye!